It doesn't take much for us to remember that most of us human beings feel anxiety quite a bit in our lives. We often will fall into all sorts of what-ifs about the future. What if this should happen? What if that should happen? What if that doesn't happen? What will I do if this occurs or that? All those what-ifs we can do. And it's like as Mark Twain discovered when he got older, he said, I finally realized that all the horrible events in my life never really happened. He just realized that what we all do is we're thinking is helping us to do the what-ifs about the future. And it never does, or rarely does. It just makes us in pain. And the other part about it too is if we're focusing on the painful experiences or fears about the future, we actually help attract them. Because what we focus on, that energy goes forth like a magnetic force field to attract that into our lives. So what do we do about anxiety? There are a variety of tools that we can use, but we might just look at a few of them here. One is to anxiety that may be programmed in because of past experiences, especially as a child or even as an adult, that made us anxious. Maybe our parents were anxious and we downloaded that. Or maybe they said things to us that made us anxious. How come you always do that? Or they're criticizing all the time. You've got to be careful, or watch out for this, or over fearful kind of instructions. If those are programmed in, I'm more likely to be anxious. Also, if I think a lot of anxious thoughts, I'm more likely to be anxious. And if I let those thoughts run me, they can go on like a train steaming down the tracks and just making me more and more anxious. The question would be, how can we break into that? One thing is to identify any past pains or programmings that did it. And we can use tools like from EMDR or EFT or other energy methods. Those are very effective for us clearing out those older painful experiences which produce the anxiety. They also are very helpful for clearing the beliefs that grew out of it, the negative beliefs. But we need to be able to have some tools here and now. And one simple thing is, when we start to be anxious, we usually don't breathe. We begin to hold our breath. We begin to breathe shallowly. When that happens, I'm depriving my brain of fuel. It's like mixing kerosene with your gasoline in your car. It goes sputtering down the road rather than functioning well. We do the same thing when we starve our brains of fuel. We need to exhale fully and completely. And then when we think we've pushed out all the air, push out a little bit more. Not as a should, but to do it as a gift to ourselves, to allow more oxygen to fill up our lungs. And then to fill up our bellies fully and completely with air. And then mindfully pause and add a little more into the chest. And then exhale fully and completely again. We have a saying in our culture that people say all the time, I didn't have time to breathe. Well, that's more literal than just a statement. Many people don't breathe and don't breathe sufficiently, and that's a major cause of anxiety, because if we don't keep that limbic system, our old survival brain, calmed down with oxygen, it's overactive. One neuroscientist told me that part of our brain is 15 to 18 times more active than it needs to be for our stage of evolution. So if that's so, we need tools to use all the time to counter the fact that we need to catch up and evolve with like other parts of our body have done, but that old survival brain is still so overactive. Then the other thing, if we can do along with the breathing, because our thoughts are jumping all around and those thoughts are helping to create the anxiety. But if I can add counting along with the breathing, like in, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, and then exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. Whatever number is okay, but usually a lot more numbers when you exhale. And if we do that, why is that helpful? Because if I'm focusing on breathing deeply and I'm focusing on counting the numbers, I can't be thinking the thoughts that have been upsetting me and making me worried. And so when I stop those thoughts from going, my whole body and my brain calm down. I don't keep pouring out the cortisol and adrenaline into my body and making me nervous and upset. So if we just do this simple thing and do it throughout the day, anytime we're anxious, to do it for a minute, to do it for 5 minutes, you could even do it for 15 minutes. Or if you're anxious at night and can't sleep, you can do this. I found that if I do that, I'm as rested as if I've had sleep. I've done that when I couldn't sleep on an airplane at night. and then I would get back and I'd be rested just from doing the breathing. So it's a system that really works if we let ourselves believe it and use it. We don't have to let anxiety rule us. We can be in charge of whether that anxiety prevails.